Welcome to the Theory of DFS podcast. I'm Jordan Cooper, the co-author of The Theory of Daily Fantasy Sports, 15-hour audio masterclass teaching you the whole game theory of DFS from the correlation, leverage, construction, projections, exploits, psychology. Go check it out. Theoryofdfs.com. Joining me this week because Eric is dead. I don't know. I'm just going to keep on saying he's dead until he comes back. It's Kyle Dvorchak, who came onto my radar because you and Matt Kajeski did a great show on the Roto Underworld podcast feed. And I know Matt Kelly is a personality, I know, and it's more season-long oriented. But out of the past year, I'm always looking for good content, and I promote. To me, the sites, we're all in the same game, right? You do stuff for Awesemo. You do stuff for tons of other sites also. I do stuff for Roto Grinders, but we're all, the pie could get bigger. It's not, as long as you're doing good stuff, I think it helps everyone. And I thought that your show on Roto Underworld for football was very similar to, what I did with the advanced sports analytics and what I just do in general with my content of, like, it's about playing the game of DFS and not necessarily like I know more about sports than you do. And is cover two going to work against this offensive set? And then a lot of times you just throw all that out because in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter. But you recently, I wanted to bring you on. I mean, we'll talk about a bunch of stuff. There's no agenda for this shit. About your experiment. Obviously, it's the very beginning about overlay. And in DFS, if you're an old schooler, there used to be overlay like out the ass. Like sites were using overlay as a marketing tool. Overlay meaning, if you don't understand what overlay is, it's when the guaranteed prize pool is more than the amount of entries that they've taken in. So your expected value is going to be positive regardless because they're paying out more than they're taking in. But the sites used to, like, just say, like, oh, we're giving away $1 million, and we know we're only going to take in 700,000, and people got attracted to that because it's essentially free money. Now overlay is not as frequent like that, but there are still opportunities to take advantage of basically the UIGEA, which states that they have to set prize pools for contests, before anyone enters. What exactly are you trying to do with your experiment on overlay hunting, and if that could make a significant enough difference in you becoming a profitable player?
Yeah, so the experiment, call it whatever you want, was kind of twofold. It was one, like, how much action can you get down, especially on DraftKings? Like, it wasn't like, oh, can I go get overlay and super draft? Like, I literally know. Like, I think their account tweets out their overlay or whatever, like, all the time. So it was like, if you're like a semi-casual player, just like you want to be good, but you're just playing for like beer money in NFL and just like trying to dip your toes in NBA or any of these things, like semi-casual players, could you just go like on your DraftKings account? I could have done it on FanDuel too, I'm sure. How much action can you get? Are you getting like $10 a day? At that point, like, even a semi-casual player, really, it's like not worth your time. And then, like, what level of effort do you have to put in to actually be profitable? Because I do think, I think, I'm not entirely sure, there's one thing I would nitpick with what you said about overlay is that you were immediately plus EV. If you're entering like bad lineups, you're probably still minus EV. If you're playing against enough people who are entering good lineups, just use that to group together. If you're playing bad double ups or like zero leverage tournament lineups into those respective contests, and enough people are playing good leverage tournament lineups or just well projected cash game double up lineups, you'd probably still be minus EV, right?
Well, I mean, I'm using it from the perspective of the average lineup.
Yes.
Right. The average, like, if everything was equal, if everyone was equally skilled, everyone would benefit expected value wise. Obviously, if you're putting in crap lineups, like we've done that before. Hey, you know how many times some contest, some GPP has overlaid, because they promoted it, they've extended it too far. It's a 70,000 entry contest, and it's like an hour to go, and there's 50,000 entries in there. Like, there's no way this thing fills. This may not even get to 60,000. I'm like, okay, 150. You put in the 150 and all your lineups bomb anyway. And it's just like, well, great. I put in more volume and I didn't get there. But from an EV perspective, from an expected value perspective, finding instances where you are either not, because we have to distinguish between, like, I consider overlay to be anything that makes it, that the contest cheaper than what a normal contest would be. Because a lot of people consider overlay to be, well, because there's still like that rake. So like in GPPs, we get like 15% rake, double ups maybe 10%. So like if you're in an 11-man double up and it's 9% rake, like if you get 10 out of 11, like if it only fills 10, essentially that's a rake-free contest. It's not overlaid. It's just that there's going to be no rake paid to the site. Like they're going to pay out the same amount as approximately as what's being put in. But if it fills 9 out of 11, that would be plus 9%. So that would be overlay. But for the distinguishers of what I consider overlay is like any time that you're getting either a reduction of rake or getting paid more. Like it's just that when you if you're in a 124-man double up and it fills 124-man, you're paying the 12%, 11 point whatever percent rake. Anything that I get less than that, because I go through my rotor tracker. It's almost disheartening, right? You go through. It's like how many? I'll bring it up now. Like this is you get so pissed off. But I mean, it's the cost of playing. So like for instance, I updated this March 1st. So this is through February of this year. Lifetime. I'll go to my lifetime. So just entries paid, $2.2 million. Now, considering obviously there's some overlay, there's some rake differences between GPPs and everything, plus the rewards that you get back. So that's kind of like a rake back type of thing. So let's just say on average, the effective rake is 10% on average. That means I paid $220,000 over the past 5.5 years to play DFS. If it weren't for the fact of the rake, I would have $220,000 more. My total profit right now over 5.5 years is about $395,000, which is great. Over 5.5, I mean that's $60,000 to $70,000 $70,000 a year on average. But if it wasn't for the rake, it would be $600,000. So it's like 40% of the total, compounded profit over that time frame. If we got rid of the rake, I would have 40% more money. So I know obviously in these big numbers it sounds dramatic. But there are so many, we laugh about it all the time in DFS, that the casual player just like, hell, sometimes even the semi-casual player like doesn't even take rake into account into how they select contests as it is. But your theory, which I think is a correct theory, I think your experiment is not on whether or not it's accurate. Obviously, the less rake you pay and the more overlay that you find, the more profit you'll be able to keep, assuming that you're an average, that you're a good enough player there, or you're a negative 15% ROI player and now you're a break-even player. Like that, just by doing what you're looking to do brings you up there. If you're a 5% ROI player, now maybe you're an 8% ROI player. Maybe you're a 12% ROI player because of that. And the question really comes in is the time versus reward element of it. Like that essentially that's what your experiment with. How much, we always talk about raw money when it comes to action. Sure, can you increase your ROI from 5% to 6%? Well, great. If you get the extra 1%, that's great. But if you're only playing $10 a day, like how much of raw money does that equal? Like an extra $100 by the end of the year? Which is great. You got an extra $100. But if you spent 3 hours a day to do that, like, dude, like you might as well go cotton picking or something. I mean, there may not even be a job that pays less hourly than doing that. So is that essentially
filling out online surveys?
Right,
just
something
for
like that.
Companies getting 10 cents a survey.
Right, but is that essentially what are you going to contests now, like for like NBA or something, and you're going, I'm just going to play the contests that look like they're overlaid.
Yeah, that's basically what I was doing, is that, the experiment was exactly, can you get enough action down worth your time? And then, like, a side element that's kind of what I was getting at is that if you don't really know anything about these, does that, like, because I think you said this before, when you pull up the DraftKings app right as contests open, as soon as they populate, you can see how much you paid, how much you entered. Do you actually capture that margin if you don't really know a ton about it? Like, I played, for instance, I have one, and I'll tell you, I didn't make money. I got a lot of action down. I didn't make money, but also, like, when you're playing these things, this is kind of, I tweeted this in, like, the middle of the night one night. I was like, we're not going to know if I was a profitable player. I played for 7 days, and most of what you're playing is large tournaments or qualifiers and satellites. If I capture one really good day in a month of these satellites, I'll be a profitable player, and I played for 6 days. So it's like hard to say actually what the true thing of my profitability
but would you say that a better measurement then? Because obviously with the variance so high, like, you can't judge. You can barely judge after a year of doing this.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
like,
exactly.
And it also depends on your skill level and the contest that you're playing. So there's so many variables. But would you judge it by that number, that spread between entries and, like you said, when the contests lock, everyone is equal. So basically everyone is tied for first place.
Yes.
Right? It's everyone has 0. So when you see the rake come out, normally, if you play, you have $1,000 of volume, and then you see, entries 1,000, currently winning $910, right? Like, that shows like $90 has just been removed because of the rake. Now, if you have $1,000 worth of entries and you need the green number, currently winning $1,082, that plus 82 represents how much either rake reduct, because let's say 1,000 currently winning, and you have currently winning is a 982 instead of 1,000. So you're only paying $18. You're paying 1.8% right there. So do you think that is a better judge, instead of going by your results over a short period of time, of how much action can I get, and then what's that plus minus right there? And if you did that every day, like, what you're looking just at expectation. So at the end of the year, how much plus, if you put in 1,000 and you're currently getting $82 in expected, like, if you put in let's say you put in $100, let me eat the numbers easy. You put in $100, currently winning $108. So that's plus 8%, right? So if you do this every day, can you get a expected return of plus 2% over the course of a period of time? I'm using the term 2% because that's kind of like the inflation rate of the dollar. Like, I always reflected on, like, can I put this money into the S&P 500? Yeah. And how much can I get from just leaving it alone? So to me, that's like the I use that as benchmarks. So do you think that's, instead of worrying so much about did you actually profit, that a better judge is to do this every day and then just record, basically the effective rake of your total number of entries. The effective rate could be positive, it could be negative.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think it depends. The answer for everything is, like, just it depends. So for instance, I entered the 333 EPL slate like last Thursday or Friday. I know a little bit about soccer, but I really haven't, like, actively played soccer DFS, and it didn't go well, but that number was significantly higher. Like, DraftKings paid me, a 7% commission to play this contest, but I still have to be at least averaged amongst people playing the 333 EPL slate. Those are probably very good players who, I think if I was playing in the $5.50 entry, making a $5.50 entry, I'm not going to be playing against those players, and that's probably a relatively good judge. If I got a 7% commission on the $5.50 entry, I think the types of players that are playing that contest, I'm within the ballpark of just entering, like, correlated, well enough projected lineups. I don't think that was enough for me to be beating people playing the 333 EPL slate. I still entered it because I was curious if it was, but I would say that if you're playing at that level of stakes, you're not just going to play correlated, well projected lineups. You actually have to even inject more of the levers, that specifically leverage, into it. And I don't think I was doing that enough in those contests, and then like NBA contests, the main slate contest. Like I maybe have entered $100 before this week in my entire life into NBA contests. So I was just turning like volatility up in Fantasy Cruncher, but use whatever optimizer you want, and trying to get unique lineups, but it wasn't using any sort of strategy to build leverage into them. It wasn't saying like, all right, everyone's paying up at point guard, I need to be paying up somewhere else, and it still builds a similar lineup, but it wins in a different way. I wasn't doing that. So I think if I was making 1 or 2% commission, I'm just going to call it commission because I think this is an easy way to frame it. If DraftKings was paying me a 1 or 2% commission, my lineups were like, they weren't going to bring down first anyway. So I would have bled money just a lot slower in the long run. So I think you probably have to be a little more granular with it. Now, there were contests, like I think our PGA Showdown stuff, people just weren't entering the best lineups. Like they weren't particularly well projected. It was like whoever was, especially I think in round 4 of PGA Showdown, you get like a small amount of points for where you finish. But it's not that much. You still need to have like a good day on the green or whatever they call it. I also don't play PGA golf. I don't play golf DFS, but people weren't entering particularly great lineups. Like I would just enter the same type of thing, like high volatility lineups into that. And I wouldn't see like anything close to what I was entering. So I think people were just like playing kind of bad lineups there. In that scenario, I do think just the rake you paid, or in this case, the commission you got, is probably a good measure. In the very high stakes EPL slate, no, you still need to be doing more. And I would not go back and play that specific one again. Now, would I just kind of play for the commission on other contests? Yeah, I do think there are a lot of contests out there that just getting that, like you said, getting that above inflation rate is probably good enough. You will probably see that return in the long run. But like high stakes soccer DFS, where I'm just playing these like median projection, low leverage lineups, no, you probably still need to have skill, plus then you get to get your rake back. So
yeah, but you're losing less. So I mean, there is still an effect. Like this in and of itself doesn't make you I don't need to know anything about DFS. Yeah. Let me just find the contests that are overlaying. Yeah, I think we all agree that that's true if everyone was equally skilled, but if you're not skilled even at the average level, this isn't going to turn you into how to make money playing DFS. This is just going to make you lose less, right? Lose slower. It's very similar to blackjack when if you play perfect basic strategy.
Yeah.
Like, it just means you're going to lose slower on average than someone that's hitting on 18 and splitting face cards. It's like, well, that's even more negative EV strategy. But nothing's going to turn it into a plus EV game without obviously getting into advantageous situations and counting cards and whole card swapping and dealer and all the stuff that the casino will throw you out for. But in a fair, straightforward game of blackjack, like, so, oh, wow, I've got less rake, but it just means that, like the lottery, it's like, oh, there's less rake in the lottery. It's still negative expectation. So you still need to build good enough lineups, but you don't need to build as good lineups. Correct. So we're all talking about on a spectrum, a scale. So if you're the type of player who's an average player that is maybe beating a game in the long run for 2%, now this turns you into a 4 or 5% ROI type of player, possibly. Or if you're losing 5%, this may turn you into a break-even player. You're not changing anything about your skill. You're just finding contests that the sites are over structuring or over, sizing or putting in late. We've talked about it before. We talked previously about these satellites on FanDuel that are always overlaid. You're obviously, because you're going to pay rake on the contest that you play it in, because that contest most likely fills. But there's literally no rake. You're making money on the satellites, but you can't realize that ROI until you actually play the contest that the satellite ticket is for. And you're going to get a 15% rake on that. So I
have a lot of tickets that are going to be 15% rake, because so much of what this is like chasing satellites. And it is so much easier to win the satellites when like they're half filled. But yeah, I still have to pay some rake on just an egregious amount of tickets. This turns out to just be like a currency exchange of where you get a good exchange rate of US dollars to DraftKings tickets.
Right. Like I did recently, like on FanDuel, on the last slate before the break. Like I entered the 20 times into they had $1 satellite, and like it literally I guess it happened so often. FanDuel awarded me the tickets when the slate locked. Like, because it literally didn't even fill up to, like, it was like 3,000 tickets. It was supposed to be like 12,000, 14,000 entries or something. And I think it filled at like 2,900. And it's like, well, they're giving away 3,000 tickets. So, like, I get 20 tickets right now because it didn't. And I was expecting, because I don't play on FanDuel as much in the past that I do now. Like DraftKings, it'll just show there, and that green bar will just be everyone, right? There's no gray area. Like, your entries are always going to be in there because, like, that's all the people that are in there. On FanDuel, apparently, they just say, screw it, the contest is over. Everyone gets a ticket. So now I'm sitting there, I have $160 worth of tickets into tomorrow's whatever GP Wednesday 2-game slate GPP that I may not even build GPP lineups for. I may just put in my cash lineup and go, give me a min cash. But it cost me what, $40? Because I was in 2 of them or something. I think 40 times 4, $40 to get $160 worth of entries. And even if I'm not playing like plus EV GPP lineups, if I maximize for a 1.5x cash, like, if I could cash all of them at 1.5x, like, now we're talking about $240, right? So I turned a $40 investment into 200. That's a 6x return on what essentially was the 4x return in unrealized value, because the satellite doesn't have a realized. You have to play the satellite. So you get from 1 to 4, so that 4x range, and then you get 2x on that if you could just place that one line up 40 times into the cash range. Now, optimally, you'd build a 150, you'd build a GPP set, and you just duplicate your line. Just say, okay, I'm putting 40 into that. That would give you a higher EV, a higher return long term. Because remember, we all know that if you're playing GPPs to min cash, you're going to just bleed your money away in the long run. But do I care about bleeding my money away when I'm getting 4 times? I'm getting 4 times equity in that as it is. So, like, my min cash in that is really a 6x on my investment. So to me, I don't mind as much, especially if I'm not playing GPP lineups on FanDuel to begin with. Do I want to now have to put in an extra half an hour to build FanDuel lineups? But isn't that the other variable that we're talking about here? Because this all sounds well and good. People are listening going, I'm going to start chasing overlay. I'm going to start playing these satellites. I'm going to start looking at 658 before lock and, the 9 out of 11. Let me try to get in so I can pay Rake free there and do all of that. And then maybe there's some slates, and then you go into turbo slates, right? You go into the tiers, and you go, maybe there's overlay there. Maybe there's overlay here. Maybe there's less Rake free there. And then next thing you know, it's like you only have about $145 worth of volume. And even even if you have an expected return of 10%, like, you did all of that for $14 fucking dollars. Like at what point is the time? I'm saying for me, myself, on FanDuel, doing the satellites, that I'm going to be playing my cash lineup in all those satellites, knowing that that's not the best strategy to maximize my EV, but it's the best strategy in comparison of the time, because the extra time is 0. So to me, it's a denominator of 0, because I'm playing cash on FanDuel already. So I'm already spending the time to enter all the 50-50s and all the double-ups and looking at the 3-mans. And I'm already spending the time to do that. And I'm already going to be building, my optimal lineup based on projections. So I don't even have to spend time thinking about what my lineup's going to be. And I'm like, well, do I want to now have to build 40 lineups? I could do what you do. I could say, just give me the top 40 projected line. Like, give me the top 40 optimals. Like, that would still be better than duplicating my lineup. But how much time does that take? Because now I have to have a CSV upload. And this all sounds like, well, why can't you do that? Well, maybe the 3 minutes that I spend to do that, the 5 minutes I spend to do that, is better spent on something else. On my DraftKings GPP lineups that I actually spend time on. So, am I willing to get less return? We see this amongst, like, the high-stakes cash players. Guys like Empire Maker. I'm going to build one lineup. I'm going to put it in everything. And he knows that when he puts it in the monster and he puts in, like, that's not necessarily the optimal lineup for GPPs. But the time it takes him to, I'll make a separate lineup for this and a separate lineup for that, it's just not worth it for his volume. He's playing $200,000 worth of volume. He's not going to make a separate 555 entry. It's just going to be wherever it places, and it's just the time is not worth it for him. Have you seen, so far, I know this, it's been, a week maybe. Have you been able to, or at least theorize just by looking, get enough action for the time? Like, how much time are you spending?
I'm spending, the thing is, yeah, it was like a question of how little time can I spend to capture not all of this this value. If it says I get $1,000 in a day and I make 1,100 back, I don't even care if I captured 1% of that 11 of what I said, $100. If I capture like $10 of that extra 100 and it took me 45 seconds throughout the day, like, yeah, my time is worth $10 per 45 seconds. But it's like, how much do I have to scale my time? And it all started on like Saturday night. I tweeted this out and you said like, oh, you should do this. I'll have you on the show. And I was like, well, internet clout, I would do this just for the clout bucks to get on this very popular show. So Sunday morning.
Oh, so you're doing this for clout bucks? So you get extra for that.
I was actually thinking about doing it before I even tweeted it out, but I was like, I'm not going to do it for everything. I'll just like, I'm toying with some NHL. I'll try and on top of like learning NHL, I'll chase overlay in NHL. And you said like, oh, do it for the rest. And I was like, sure, I'll find out if it's actually worth my time. Sunday morning, I'm on news shift at Roto World and it's off football season on a Sunday. I'm not going to do anything all day. I will be doing nothing but refreshing Twitter. So perfect. I will my time has no value because I have to be tied to my computer anyways. I'm already working. So every single slate, like I played every single contest that had overlay for an entire day. And at the end of the day, I was like, there was 3 slates that I got a good, like a worthwhile 100, 200, whatever dollars in. And then also I entered $1 into CSGO. I'm never going to even if I know CSGO starts at noon, I'm never looking back at that. But for the PGA showdown, I got like $200 or $300 down, and I don't even think people were playing that well. And I got a ton of overlay. Like DraftKings paid me a 10% commission. I will play, like I'll be now waking up a little early on Sunday mornings to get those lineups in. So I think as I went through, I got about in, I think a week and a day, maybe $3,000 or so down. I think it was just over $3,000. And DraftKings paid me like a 1 or 2% commission. And I think
so 1%, 1 to 2% over
overlay.
So basically so if you consider the effective rake of those contests somewhere between 10 and 15%, that you got the 10 or 15% to the break-even line, and then you even got 2% over that. So it's not because some people may misunderstand that 2% commission meaning that you took your rake from 15% to 13%. It's like, no, you took the 15% rake 17 percentage points over to the 2% over. But you know how big of a deal that is?
Oh, I mean, I think the next step for me is not like, oh, well, I probably entered a below average 333 EPL lineup. The next step for me is like, how do I get just to average so I can capture that? Because I think if I played that again, like the people entering that EPL lineup would probably beat me just in a neutral game, assuming like, no rake would probably beat me on average because they like, I was
probably, maybe you're 60-40 dog, maybe.
Okay, yeah. So, but 60-40 dog, even rake free, like I'm probably not going to win. But if I can just get to 50-50 against the field of players, many of whom are really good EPL players, some of whom are probably closer to my skill level, if I can just get to 50-50, that's my goal. It's not to give up on that. My next goal is to push myself from 40-60 to 50-50, even actually less, because they paid me like 7 or 10% commission on that lineup.
Right. So you have to, you could be a 55-45. You could be like 53-47 and be profitable.
Exactly. So that's the next step for me is not like, oh, well, I got some of this at high stakes, which I don't think I'm a winner at right now on certain things. Like I think NHL, probably maybe. EPL, no, I don't really know a ton about it. But my next step is not to give up on that. It's like, oh, I can get $3,000 down. And some of that I think is like people, it was in contests like NBA tiers, like weird stuff like that. This is perfect. NBA Showdown. I'm chasing overlay some night. And it ended up like I'm not quite used to the speed. Like on a tennis showdown, if there's a 23-man contest with 5 people in it and a minute left, it's getting to like 7 entries. Right. NBA, like big slate showdown, 5 seconds left. I enter a $100 contest. It was at 4 out of 11 and it immediately jumped to 11 out of 11. I'm like, oh, what? kind of sucks. But I had been playing, at least with my NBA Showdown. I don't know how to make the best lineups, but I know dupes are a horrible problem. And if I can just I'll just brute force Fantasy Cruncher on 500 lineups. The first 20 are Kyrie Irving, and the next 2 are Harden is on that team. I mean, I literally don't know. Like, Harden is on that team. I'll just take the second Harden lineup because it projects 2 points different, but I know I'm probably running into a lot of dupes in those first 11, just ballparking how much projection I'm willing to give up in an 11-man contest to get a unique. 5 people in this 11-man contest played the same entry. I could have played the worst lineup and still had a great EV because in a contest that pays out 3 places, 5 people entered the same lineup. And I was seeing that in the smaller qualifiers too, like a $4 entry, and you get one 250 satellite to whatever the NBA World Fantasy Championship or whatever is, and it pays out 1 place. And people are duping the same lineup like 5 or 10 times. I can enter terrible lineups and still have massive plus EV. Even if there was Rake in these contests, I would probably still have a ton of EV just by playing a mediocre but non-duped lineup. Now, add in the fact that they're filling 70% of the way, my EV in those has to be super high. Whereas if I get to 50-50 on the EPL, it's good because it didn't fill it. I got it 7 or 10% commission, but I think I could have pushed the expected value on some of these really high up and still, get $3,000 or $4,000 down. There was days where I was like, no, I'm not going to wake up at 7:50 to chase the tennis overlay, even if it is good. I don't know. My sleep
but when you say chase overlay, we're still talking about the overlay comes in the minutes before lock. So when you say that you're spending time, I just want to highlight this. It's not like we have an NBA slate tomorrow. It's 8:00, and you're getting up at 8:00 in the morning chasing over. There's no overlay. These contests are going to fill. The contests that you see in the lobby are going to fill for the most part. But maybe the big field GPPs you have to see later in the day. What you mean by your time is that you're playing all the slates and others. Well, tennis locks at 11. Well, golf locks at 12. The second round, second half showdown, or the second half NBA showdown. The tiers, turbo tiers. I mean, we're talking about the little slates, the turbo slates. So you're going to be around 10 minutes before lock and assess. Let's take a look at the lobby. Are double ups not filling? Are GPPs not filling? Because obviously you're not going down into the non-guaranteeds, because if they don't fill, they don't fill. So do you have lineups? How do you, because you're not going to know what the overlay is. So are you like you said before, if they're cash contests, do you just play whatever the best Awesemo projected optimal is? And then if it's a GPP, do you just, like you said, quickly go to your optimizer, say, just give me you spend a minute and then you enter it because you're not going to know. So obviously there's time involved with that, but there's a crunch there. It's not a matter of just entering the contest. You need to make lineups.
Yeah, so typically for NBA it's a little harder because projections can change up until close at lock, or even
Paul George, right? 40 seconds.
Yeah, so that one's a little harder. For NHL, where it's we pretty much know lines and stuff, it's really convenient. I'll pick whatever 10-cent contest, because I can still play the less than $3 whatever. Pick whatever 10-cent contest is and throw 20 lineups into it. That $2 is not in the morning. I'll do that in the morning, or not in the morning.
So you're preparing. You've already outlined what your day is going to look like.
Yep.
By making your life. So it's not the type of thing of, I find the overlay and then make the lineups. It's you already have a set plan.
And NBA has to kind of be I can't make an NBA lineup in the morning.
But you have dummy lineups. You have something. You have it's something there.
NBA, I don't even have dummy lineups. I don't want to get caught entering zeros and not be able to change it. So I will I'll be crunching last 45 seconds before upload the CSV and then start jamming in all the double ups. But for most other sports, I have a dummy lineup, and I'll try it's a little hard because it's not super intuitive on your phone. But I'll have dummy cash lineup and dummy tournament lineups. Mm-hmm. Well in advance. If I need to change them, I'll change them as, laid up to a few minutes. But yeah, I just have $2 in 20 lineups, 10-cent lineups made hours in advance, and just on my phone, seeing contests, jam it. Everyone, jam it, that it will, obviously, the ones I can tell will overlay. NBA's not, that's why I didn't play almost any NBA main slate because of that. And if you're playing NBA main slate and like you need to late swap, well, like, oh, I was already trying to enter the NBA Turbo and the NHL Turbo and some showdowns and stuff. I can't be juggling all these things. So I actually almost played no NBA main slate. It was all the turbos, but it was every turbo, every showdown, same time as NHL showdowns and stuff. But it was almost all optimized around like I can't be late swapping. Or I don't want to be late swapping, so it will be A, difficult, and B, like I just don't want to. It's like a
right, but for the purposes of what you're trying to do, you're trying to eke as much money out of the average lineup. Like
yes,
it seems like
a perfect way to describe it.
Right.
Yes.
I think the better way, yes, you could, if you did this and then like made the best lineups you can and spent, and had like this is why if you're already doing that, getting the commission, as you put it, from DraftKings and finding the contest just increases your profit. But even if you just wanted to take, it's a very similar experiment, if you want to call it, as what I'm doing in NBA cash games. I've ceded control of what I'm doing. I'm just saying whatever the Roto-Grinders projections say the optimal is, that's what I'm playing. And my goal right now, all my time is on diversification. On 3 sites, how could I optimally diversify my action to smooth out that variance, even because I'm looking at a lineup going, if I had to choose, I wouldn't play these guys like this 2v2. I know what's going to happen, but over the course of 200 slates, what's that benchmark? Can I beat that number? So like my goal in this experiment is not to have the best lineup. It's to have the best diversification. It's to have the risk-free, like I don't want to call it risk-free, but I didn't have to put any time into this other than diversification. And this was my return based on this projection source. And you could change your projection source. You could aggregate, whatever. But just taking the actual DFS play out of it as to have a constant of what this is. So what you're doing essentially is, you're not trying to beat players. You're not trying to beat users. You're just like, can I make a lineup that is at least above average? How much can I make on that lineup by just finding overlay or rake-free, rake-reduced contests? And because to make that average lineup probably takes like very little amount of time because you're not concerning your
contest seconds, yeah.
Right, because you're not concerning yourself with correlation and leverage and what ownership is. It's just like, can I make a lineup that has a good probability of minimum cashing in whatever contest, double ups, obviously that's, you get paid the same amount regardless. And how much money can you make on that? And because if the answer is that you can, and it's substantial enough, then why not?
Yeah, it's exactly what I was doing. And it's a week, so it doesn't really say much. And a lot of my action came in like really weird spurts, like that 333 EPL slate. I entered twice. I didn't win, but I don't think I entered terrible lineups. I don't know if I was plus EV or not in that, but it does affect what my ROI was within a week drastically. Like I lost.
Right, because it's such a big proportion of what your volume that you're putting in.
And same with NBA second half showdown of the All-Star game. I got a lot of action on that. Very plus EV in terms of the commission I was,
right, but you probably played LeBron and got fucked.
You would be correct. You would be very
right.
correct.
It didn't play the second half. Fuck him. Right.
So yeah, but I got a ton of, I'm gonna call it good action in the sense of DraftKings was on average paying me to play on those 2 nights. I got like $800 or $1,000 on those 2 nights at like a 7 to 10% commission. But one, you do need to make just not dead lineups. I don't think I was doing that. But given that, that EPL slate, I do think people are probably pretty dang good at that. They're willing to throw up $333. So the next step in this would be, and will be, because I'm going to do it a little bit more selectively, will be to at least get myself to, like we were talking about with the EPL, 43.57. I'm still not particularly close to the average skill level, but DraftKings is paying me so much to play that contest. And if I can just squeeze out a few dollars by playing the most, 2 steps above the most mediocre lineup, I will be trying to do that. And for NBA Showdown, like I was saying, it takes it takes 3 extra seconds to scroll down from the optimal lineup to the 7th optimal lineup, because that optimal lineup has a very good chance of being duped. It's worth my time to inject a little, if you want to call that leverage or whatever. If it takes 2 seconds of my time to do that. So my next step in this is to find those little extra edges. Like NBA, it was already just don't play the top optimal lineup in a contest that pays out 1 spot. Beyond that, I am doing nothing else. So there are tweaks you can make to playing the best average lineup. The best average non-duped lineup is a tweak I made in NBA. And finding all these small tweaks, I think, doesn't take long. It doesn't take a lot of your time, but does make a big difference in terms of your ROI for like the non-dupes or types of things. So if I can if I can get that commission, like just capture as much of that commission as possible, that's the next step. But yeah, like you can get a lot. I got, in a week, I got like $3,000. And on the day I played the EPL slate, I was like, I have a lot of money for this theory on the line right now. I don't really want to find out how much more I can get down on the next slate. So I took the rest of the night off until the late night showdown slates or whatever. I was like, I'm not going to chase whatever EPL showdown or Liga MX showdown, because I have for me, it was a lot of money riding on this. I did not just feel personally like I wanted to put that much money down. I'm sure I could have squeezed out a good bit more money, or like days where I was like, no, I don't want to wake up at 4 a.m. to chase overlay in League of Legends. Like, if you are willing to do that, I would guess, just like rough estimate, you can get like $5,000 a week at least down, commission free. How much of that can you capture? I mean, commission free, like 1 or 2% commission at least. How much of your time are you willing to spend staying up till 4 a.m. to do that? How much are you willing to risk? Like, is that comfortable with what you're risking? But I would say for anyone who is like a semi-casual player, like maybe I'm making like dummy lineups or having like the shell lineup in a 10-cent contest, but I would be waiting until 1 minute before lock every single night. If I'm playing like $100 of NBA, I would, try and get my lineup in a dummy lineup in a 10-cent contest. That one is set and ready to go a minute before lock, and I would only be entering contest a minute before lock, because you can get your action down so much better if you're just willing to, wait up until the end and do that. And even if you're playing hundreds of dollars a day, that I don't know about thousands a day, but thousands a week, you can get that all in commission free, just to be a little more selective. So I think for anyone who is anything other than like full-time living, I don't think you can get $10,000 a week down on it. But if you're not trying to make an entire living, you can get 100% of your action down rake free.
So, like, to put things into perspective, like, you think it's reasonable if you play multiple sports, multiple
sports, multiple slates too. You have to
multiple sports, multiple slates. Could you think you could get $500 down in a day, either rake free or with a commission?
I got $500 down all the time on weekends, because you get like you get PGA Showdown, PGA Late Showdown, tennis, all of these things in the middle of the week. Especially right now, we don't have NBA. Right, it starts back up tomorrow. Maybe not as much. But you could average that. You're getting most of it in on the weekends, because that's when all the sports are running, NASCAR is running. But yes, you could easily average.
And is this primarily GPPs or cash games?
It's almost all GPPs and satellites. Every once in a while, you'll pick up like double ups on the cheap. Just they don't overlay.
The question I have, because I'm doing the calculation, just a very broad, just a highlight for the people listening. What would you consider the effective rake if the contest filled of $500 worth of action? Would you consider like 13%?
Yeah, that's probably
a mix, because obviously you have 15% GPPs, but you also have some satellites that may be 12% rake. You may have double ups that are 11% rake. So like, what's like the average rake? Is it more closer to 15 or more closer to 10?
Oh, yeah, I see. It'd be much more closer to 15. It'd be like, if you averaged all, it would be like 14 or 13. I guess though, you are getting probably a little bit lower rake if you like play, higher stakes,
right? But
yeah,
let's just say
13 is probably a safe estimate.
Okay, so let's just say
you want to err on the side of rake.
Okay, so let's say 13%. So if you put $500 in and all these contests actually did fill, you'd be paying $65 in rake.
Yep.
Okay, so now instead of that, you are going to play rake free or possibly get paid 1 to 2%. So let's say 2%. Let's say you're able to get $500 worth of action, so that when the green number comes up, it says 510, right? 2%. Right? That's what would be to $10, 2%. Yeah. So instead of you put in $500 and now you're getting back. So now you're getting $10 instead of paying $65. So in expectation, you've just earned yourself $75. Right? Because instead of paying the rate,
on average, you could do that for an entire week. I mean, I don't know what it's like when NHL, NBA, preseason or spring training MLB are going. But right now, you can absolutely get that at those rates, you know?
Right. So let's say if you spent the time to play $500 a day, you'd make $75 in expectation, assuming that you could make an average lineup or whatever. So per week, that would be $525, right? Per year, per year, we're talking about, if you did it every day, that's $27,000.
Yeah. I mean, especially like if you are playing, I think you can even increase that. You can increase the commission you're getting if you are playing $10 or $15 because you put that all into satellites and the satellites half fill, or like you said, they just give you the tickets.
Right.
So if you're even more comfortable just like, oh, I am going to maximize the overlay chase at the expense of not getting quite as much action down, you can even maximize that more if, you know, you're a little more casual player, not playing $500 a day.
Right. But you also probably notice, I know that the higher the stakes you get, the more overlay you'll find, but also that average lineup has to be a lot better because it's more likely, you're more likely I'll find at NBA Lock that the $250 double up is only 8 out of 11, and I'm going to get in as the 9th or possibly 10th guy, but it's like, well, it's also a $250 double up, and I'm getting it. The 10 people in there are me and the 9 best NBA DFS. I mean, like you're not playing. These aren't dollar contests, or you may have. Like you said with the EPL, the 333, or the 275, because you're talking to someone that does play. Those are the contests I play, but I play them when they overlay. But of course, I'm a much better soccer DFS player than you are. But those you're not playing against crappy players. I mean, like the average lineup is much different. So finding this overlay, you're more likely, or the rake free stuff in the higher stakes. But you just have to realize. Your average, I think, would you consider it a good, if someone wanted to step up their play? Like, I think this technique, if you want to call it a tactic or a technique, may be best, if you say the optimal player type, is a lower stakes, profitable player that wants to get more action, less than someone that, like, if you're not a profitable player already, finding the overlay in the high stakes is not gonna. You're still gonna be a losing player. But I'm talking about like if you're playing $100 a slate right now, if you're profitable, if you're playing $100-$200 a slate and you're profitable, and you've been proven over 2-3 years, and it's like, well, if I could play the $250, 4-max GPP if it overlays, and or rake free. Like your average lineup is still going to be good enough to make up that difference of the, like, if you could play that contest rake free, you would still be profitable because you're still a good enough DFS player to do so. So instead of thinking in terms of, well, if I'm playing $200 a day, now I'm going to play $400 a day. Like maybe the extra $200 should go into 5 minutes before lock, finding the overlay and not minding if you're playing a $100 contest because you've still been proven good enough at the lower stakes that your average lineup stands to be competitive enough that you're going to show positive expected value in that contest anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. That's like the perfect way of framing it. If you are playing $200 and you're like, should I max out the largest NBA contest or whatever? Should I max out the largest contest and pay the 15% rake? I'd have to, like, the players can't be that good playing the 250 that it is not worth getting your 15% rake back, and then, like in my case, I found an extra 7% commission. Even if your players, like you said, you're playing against better players, your average lineup is going to go from being like above average in your low stakes to even below average or average at the higher stakes. My inclination is that instead of playing in the largest contest that fills and you pay 15% rake, you are better off playing against better competition, without a doubt. Like, not going to contest that you're playing against better players, but getting a 7% rake back. That's like, it would be really hard for me to believe that the players you're playing against are that much better, that it's worth the inverse 22% you got on rake.
Right. But people would listen to this. A lot of people would listen to this and go, well, this is some nitty shit. But I mean, if you take a look at the numbers, to me, it's not, to me, this is free money. I mean, like, I just don't understand. Like, oh, I don't want to take the time. Like, how much time are you realistically taking? I don't think it for the expectation raw money worth. I think it's worth it. If you could get an extra $75 a slate on $500 worth of volume, like, how is, to me, I don't view that as nitty at all. I think the behavior is viewed as nitty, but I think that obviously the more people that try to do this, obviously the overlay tends to, go away, right? I mean, we saw that in the past where, it's only half full, 2 hours to lock, and then next thing you know, it's almost always full because everyone just chases, right? It's like, well, now I'm going to put in 150. Now I'm going to put in 150, and it's like, oh, okay, that actually went off like, yeah, rake reduction. It was only 4% rake, not 15, but it didn't like overlay like 20% or something that it happens. But I think just based on the time scaling, this type of overlay, as long as the UIGEA remains in effect where the sites have to post a prize pool. Because obviously if you get rid of that and it's just like it fills to whatever it fills and it's a percentage, like then overlay is done. Then there's no, we're fucked at that point, right? Right? It's just going to keep on filling. A contest can fill double. It doesn't matter. It's just going to be percentage payouts. Don't you think that as long as there's a 5-10 minutes before lock and sites are going to post new contests, that this type of overlay / rake reduction like will always exist, especially when they're adding new formats and new slates, and because they're trying to churn as much rake as they could get the sites. So, I mean, do you think this goes away anytime soon?
No, one, because like I come on here and tell you that I played 3,000 with a 1% commission. Like, how many people are actually going to go and do what I did? Like, nobody wants to. It wasn't like the Sunday I did it wasn't like a fun Sunday. I was like, just like, oh man, how do you play a tennis lineup? And we had like, Austin had like, here's how you play tennis. I was like, all right, I get it. I understand how to enter a lineup.
Don't play two players against each other.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Just learning the basics of like not doing that, or like soccer. Like I knew this already, but had I not known, I'd be like, all right, you get correlation, you get like set piece takers, you've got, clean sheet bonuses for goalie and defense correlates with that. I've got those. I can make an average lineup. So you have to learn how to make the average lineups, and you can make some tweaks on that. But like, not many people want to do what I'm doing. I don't blame them. It's like a big sink of time. It just happens to be like, if I'm already playing.
To people, it's I think we're weird people, Kyle.
Yeah, no.
To me, this sounds like fun. This sounds like an intellectual challenge.
No, that's why I wanted to do it. Is like, I wasn't sure if I was going to make money. Like, is the average, like you said, is that quote average lineup good enough to make money? Can I get a lot? Can I get any reasonable amount of money worth my time in? I think the answer to like a lot of those is yes. Like the average lineup is probably not going to be good in NBA Showdown, but making some small tweaks to quote the average lineup, I found it really interesting to see if I could get a reasonable amount of money in with. It turns out to be, a 1% commission. I could probably even push that anymore. I found it very interesting. I don't think many people think it is, so it will probably always exist. And like you said, with all these, like so much of my action was showdown action, regardless of sport. It was just showdown action because it's like a very specific time. It's not when guy sitting down on his couch watching golf or whatever. Throws some lineups into it on whatever. Golf starts on like Thursday. Probably throws it in then and doesn't think about it. I'm like, man, it's noon on a Sunday. There's half of the golfers still have left to go. How much action can I get in? I don't think many people think like that. And they keep adding in-game showdown. They keep adding this stuff and they keep adding sports. Like we got all the esports this past year. And we'll get XFL back in a year or whatever. They keep adding some sports and they keep adding contests within each sport and lock times. They keep, the mini half turbo second in-game showdown type of contest. I think, unless something changes where they don't have to put up guaranteed money, no, not enough people are going to be doing this to the point where you don't get a commission. I think you could always just go and get a commission if you wanted, just hopefully capitalize on it, which I didn't, but I think if I do it in the long run, I will. So I'm going to keep doing this with some slight modifications.
Right, because even the sites don't care that much because it's not like they're overlaying massively. I mean, like these are, I mean, they're giving up $8 here and $10 there. Yeah. Like it doesn't, like what else are they going to, they're going to put up a double up that's a 23-man double up. If it fills 19 out of 23, oh well, that $3 double up is overlaid by $5. And like, of course, they're making more money in the broader sense of it, but The way that you put, I like the way that you put it. That it almost feels like you're getting paid to play.
Yeah, if you can just enter like it probably helps to like have access to like projections for every possible sport and almost every, like maybe not in-game showdown. You probably need to be able to enter average lineups, but if you do that and be a little selective, yeah, you can definitely just get paid to play.
Right, and you're chasing overlay. So it's like you're getting laid and then getting paid.
That is
get laid, get paid. Isn't that the reverse? Isn't that the reverse?
That would be the reverse, yeah.
Right? Isn't that the reverse of man's?
That would be the reverse, I believe. But okay. It's a bit too nitty to be that cool. Like, just get paid, get laid. It's too cool, so we reverse it because it sounds a little bit off, which is kind of what this is. Like, you have to be kind of weird to just be like, I don't know anything about this sport, but I know they'll give me a few extra dollars today if I play it. You have to be a little weird to do that, so I guess that's why we reverse the saying.
Right, the reverse man's. That's what that is.
Yeah, Mans is like too cool. Mans doesn't seem like someone who would actually be nitty. He's just like throwing cash around, like, getting paid, getting laid, doing whatever. Where me, I'm like, hold on, honey, I know, you've got the candles on, the roses laid around the bed, but there's actually a San Jose Sharks showdown slate where it's $5 and no one's in this contest yet. So I hold off on the get laid. I gotta go make like weird money on like stupid sports.
I'm waiting for the band's NFT because that has to be coming.
What isn't that just like, because what man's coin though is the physical crypto? Is man's NFT just art, like just physical painting?
No, it's actually the human being. Is man?
It's just right. Man. You just get to buy hanging out with mans.
Right, exactly. A physical NFT.
That would be I'd pay all the rake I just got.
You'll get a non-fungible experience.
The word fungible just makes it sound gross. Like, you can't funge an experience with mans. This is that real stuff. So yeah, but no, I think there are a lot of aspects of this that I want to keep going with. Like, I won't play in contests that are like really important to late swap because like I don't want to commit my time to that. I probably won't wake up at 4 a.m. for the League of Legends slate. And I won't play like Liga MX because the largest contest like 20 people in Liga MX. But like, do I want to get good enough to reach that 43-57 lineup in like mid to high stakes EPL, even if I scale it down from $333 to $50? Like, yeah, and I think it is like probably really not, like, I don't want to give it too much credit, but it does seem like it'd be fairly easy to find out a way to make an average lineup and capture 1% rake on a reasonable amount of money that is certainly worth my time. Right,
but the key, I mean, you're coming from it you're coming from it not knowing the sport, trying to build the average lineup, but I'm highlighting the fact that the tactic and technique that you're using would be beneficial for those who could already build an average. Like, I'm already good at soccer. I'm already good at NBA. Yeah. I'm already good. Like, I'm already like, this is not, I'm playing Australian rules football and I have no clue what the fuck's going on. And it's like, I need to find
Aussie rules soon. Got some tickets.
Right. I need to find something that something, and hopefully NASCAR I don't play, but I'm sure there are projections I could find for that. It's not like I'm doing that. Like, you can. That's what you're doing.
That is what I was doing for many sports.
Right, but let's say you already play 5 different sports. There are probably plenty of people that don't realize how much overlay, or at least rake reduction, there is in the turbo slates, the showdown slates. And, like, if I'm already playing a main slate, so let's say on Thursday, because obviously this Wednesday only has 2 games. So on Thursday, you play the main slate.
Obviously, only has 2 games. If I knew
right, you don't even know, right?
I wouldn't even know,
right? But on an NBA slate, there could be a main slate, a turbo slate, a night slate, 3 showdowns, and like if you're able to reduce the 15% rate to positive, and get even if you just let's screw it, you don't even get the positive. You just reduce it so you're playing rake free. Like, look, I just want to highlight, I paid $2.2 million worth of fees over the course of a year. Let me go to my yearly. So that doesn't sound like as much. I mean, obviously, $2.2 million of entries, like Alex does that in about a week. So does that, imagine how much rake those guys pay. Let me go to my dates in Roto Tracker and just go by year. So like in 2020, which it was a COVID year, so like there was a gap. about $480,000 wagered. If the effective rake on that is even just 10%, that's $48,000. So if I was able to play every slate rake free, I would have made 48,000. I mean, like, that equals that amount of money. I mean, like, I don't think people understand that the rake means a lot. I mean, if they got rid of the rake in DFS, the number of profitable DFS players would be exponentially higher. Like, there'd be tons. Even if they reduced the rake by 5% to just 10%, and then the cash games were like 3% rake, there'd be so many more profitable players. So if you have a way, if there are slates available and these sites are adding slates all the time, because Kyle, we didn't even mention, you're just doing this on DraftKings.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I started at the beginning saying, like, I'm not even going to count Super Draft. They tell you that, like, they're doing the
right. Well, I mean, but that's a special instance. I want to get away from the they're doing it on purpose for a specific period of time to get you to play there, which you should take advantage of. That's very similar to sportsbook bonuses, right? Like, come and get your free bet. Like, you should take advantage of all of that stuff. But I'm talking about more mature markets where, well, if you could get $500 of action on DraftKings rake free, you could probably get $500 of action on FanDuel rake free. Yahoo, I play Yahoo, and I could tell you some of those higher stakes $109 double ups regularly fill 10 out of 11, 9 out of 11, and that's rake free right there. And I'm always there at 658. Like, how do I enter any late contests? I mean, it's not just DraftKings. So even if, let's say, you could, and all those sites, Yahoo has 3 NBA slates, FanDuel has Showdown and weird whatever formats they have. I truthfully think if you were willing to spend the time, that would you say, if you had access, Kyle, I'm going to pose a hypothesis.
Sure.
If you had access to projections for any sport, and they were good projections. Obviously, you're at Awesemo, so they have projections for everything, right? Roto Grinders, we have projections for everything, okay? If you just had access to that, which just gives you the baseline of, like, they're good enough, and I could build an average lineup like that. If you were to hunt for overlay like you've been doing on every site for every slate that's available, that, you know, and you looked, and maybe you don't play certain slates or whatever, do you think that with an average lineup, as long as you could build an average lineup, that you could make $30,000 to $40,000 a year just doing it?
I think before taxes, yes, probably.
Before taxes, obviously.
Yeah. Before I've thought about that too. I was like, well, you know, you lose lots of taxes, and like I think actually there are like so many ways I could have optimized what I was doing. Realistically, there are many times. So yes, I think the answer to you is probably yes. Especially if you did, like, there are just some simple fine-tuning things, like I was saying with Showdown, but, like, if I had an iPad and my phone, I couldn't really enter if there was good overlay on 2 Showdown slates at the same time. I was clicking as fast as I could and could not get all my lineups in. If I have an iPad, a phone, and I'm like clicking both Showdowns and I'm on multiple sites, you could push what I did the bare minimum. Like, you could push what I was doing so much farther to where they're paying you a 1% commission and you are already maximizing your profit in different ways, non-dupes, getting extra action down on like multiple slates that lock at the same time. Like, I could have been like playing NBA Classic and late swapping. Like, I just wasn't, like, I didn't hardly know anything about that, so I wasn't. So yes, like, I got you could probably double at least or triple what I got down, just like kind of semi-casually chasing overlay like a weird nit. I got 3,000 in a week. You could like 5,000 just on DraftKings and push your edge on how you were doing that with, you know, like I was like non-dupe strategies. I'm sure there are other things I haven't thought of, better correlation. And then you could do that on all these different sites. Yeah, I mean, you get like $10,000 down in like a week.
And if the let's say the effective rate is 12% and you're getting it rake free, that's $1,200.
Yeah, exactly. And just multiply that by weeks a year. So yeah,
absolutely. Right. So $1,200 times that's $60,000 to $70,000 in expectation. I want to make it clear, expectation.
Yeah.
Right.
I get the difference between expectation because I had to actually I couldn't find in Roto Tracker if they tracked the rake you paid,
Right?
like because it just like they're not used to my kind of play apparently. So I actually had to download my own CSV history, take the days I did, and then remove. I was playing some of my own. Like I was like, I'm not chasing overlay on like certain like NHL stuff. I'm trying to win normally, like a normal, not weirdo. So I had to remove those, and then I calculated my calculated the rake I paid. So yeah. That was not the well, it was not the easiest, but it was just funny. Where was I going with this?
I don't know. Do other people does someone like Adam find what we do to be too nitty?
I don't like. You shouldn't. It's
to me. It's money. Not. To me, it's smart. I don't know.
So what I was saying was that, and then I took all my contests. I figured out how much rake I paid, which was negative, and then I sorted by contest entry size or dollar size. So how much you're paying. And I would assume some of this is playing against worse competition, but also some of this is like the LeBron thing is that I think I ran kind of bad on all of my expensive stuff. Because literally my 6 highest entry dollar contest, I didn't cash a single one. I played pretty well on played as if I'm doing anything really on some of the cheap stuff. Also the overlay there was more, but you have to accept that you are playing either high dollar stuff, which like if you lose that's probably you've just lost for a week or two. Like it's just like hyper tournament play. You're chasing satellites and expensive tournaments and stuff you don't know a ton about, Showdown, which is in itself highly volatile. So if you did this, you would have to accept that like you are on average supposed to make a lot of money, and it's going to come at like it's just hyper tournament play. It's only tournament play, and you're getting Showdown slates and lots of money some days and $50 another day or something like that. So it's hyper volatile, but it's like is literally paying you a commission to play this way. So
right,
yeah,
so you still need a sizable enough bankroll to survive the swings of even doing
exactly.
this.
Yeah, that's why I didn't want to I didn't even max out that EPL one because I was like I don't want to have $1,000 down on this EPL slate where I'm just seeing if being average is good enough. So yeah, you have to have the bankroll to survive these ups and downs. And you have to just be comfortable with like, yeah, I'm playing like stuff I don't know about. So, I hopefully I'm entering average lineups into contests where that beats it. And that even if assuming that is the case, which in a lot of sports, I could kind of infer that was the case for me. Like I lost money this week and I still think I was probably a plus EV player, maybe, especially if I probably don't play that EPL slate. Cause I would imagine there were some really good players in there. I don't think my average lineup was good enough, but if you kind of make some slight tweaks to it, you're going to be hyper volatile, but I think it would be super easy, free 1 or 2% commission, at least, if not more.
Right, and you're saving the rake. I mean, just highlighting that saving the rake is, I mean, it's any money that you're not paying to DraftKings is money that you're keeping in your pocket.
No, I mean, like I said, I think DraftKings, on average, it didn't pan out, but on average, DraftKings paid me to play $3,000 in action. They literally gave me money to play $3,000 in action in a week. I certainly didn't come away with $3,050, but I think if I did this over the long run and then made some slight adjustments to it, easily that is the return you'd probably see.
Right, and you said the effective rake was like minus 2%, so they paid you 2%.
Yeah, it was. I think it was like 1%. Yeah,
1%. So that basically they said it's kind of like they said to you, "Hey, Kyle, we're going to give you $30, so you play $3,000 worth of volume, rake free."
Yeah, and I think I could have gotten like I was playing I already had NHL lineups because I was playing NHL, and I was like, oh, this one's gonna be 9% rake. Like if I wanted to only chase like plus like paid contest, I think you can adjust to get like maybe a little less action down, but only play in the ones where they are literally paying you. Because like if I said like I'm telling you a lot of contests I played 8%, 7%, 1% break even, think about all the contests that pay. Like if I got above 0%, that means there were a lot of contests that were 7%, 8%, 10%. I mean, there were some like it was only once every 2 or 3 days and it was $20, but it was like the tickets thing where it was a tournament payout and everyone won money. So,
right. I get that sometimes in double up on some of these soccer slates or whatever. It's like it's 4 out of 11 with a minute left to go.
Yep.
And it's like I'm the 5th guy in and that's it. And it's like everyone wins. It's like they're going to pay out 5 spots to a double up, and there's only 5 guys in there, and you're good. There, you've won. You've just free money. It's just literal free money. But like I said, if more people did this, don't you think that there would be more of a rush? I mean, because you saw even with the high stakes contest, it was 4 out of 11, and then within 30 seconds, it's 11 and 11.
I think it was 5-11 with 6 seconds left. Now I was like, free money, baby. And no, literally filled. So I think, yes, if more people did it, I have no faith in people to play this weird, dumb, nitty strategy. People aren't going to
I don't think it's weird. I don't think it's dumb. I just think people are lazy.
Yeah, it's not dumb in the sense of it literally, like, if you can just play average, we'll make you money. It's just like weird, and people don't want to be like locked down to their computer doing all this stuff. Like, I get why you wouldn't, but like I do want to make this money. So I don't think other people will do it. If they did, of course it would. I probably, if other people were doing it, I probably wouldn't have gotten played commission free. I would have gotten 2, 3, 4% rake, but almost no one is doing this. Obviously with like NBA, I said 6 other people at least were doing it. So yeah, there would be definitely that rush. I think you could even, you can't like model this out, but you can even get a good idea of, like you said, like 5 minutes left, EPL 11 people. If 2 people are in, that ain't filling. It's a 2-game EPL slate on a Thursday afternoon. NBA, the Premier Showdown slate, that will probably reasonably fill. So you can actually, like, I started to get kind of a feel on which contests we're going to fill or come close to fill. The rake would at least not go down as much. So you could even sort of not model, but in your head, like a heuristic of like, okay, if it's 7 out of 11 in an NBA contest, it's going to fill even with 5 seconds left. So yeah, as if more people are going to do this, as more people would, you would have to kind of adjust how you chase the rake.
Right. I could see myself doing something like this, similar to you, where you set your lineups up beforehand. Like, to me, like,
I think you not have to.
Yeah, like what you said. Like what I would think about doing is I would build a cash lineup, a double up type of lineup. Yeah. I would build like a single entry GPP type of lineup, and then I would have another lineup that's not a 20 set of lineups that are just for large field GPPs. And then now it's 5 minutes before lock, and it's like, this double up ain't filling. This lineup goes into that. This single entry GPP, this ain't filling. That goes into that, and then it's like, oh, the quarter arcade, or if you're still eligible for it, it's like the second version of the quarter arcade is like half filled and is 59 seconds to go. Put my 20 lineups into that, like, but you have to, but in order, that's why, like I mentioned before, like, you almost have to set this up beforehand, because there's no way for you to do this a minute before lock and then build your lineups.
Yeah, exactly. That's like, but I do think, like, you're thinking about it the way I am. It's like, okay, we're building average lineups, but now can we build, it doesn't have to be great, but build a comparable tournament set, just a 20 set. It doesn't even have to be that good because you're chasing overlay, but like, where's the meta go in this? And it's having 21 lineups, a 20 set, and then your double up, because you don't want to, like, ideally you don't want to play that double up in a tournament. So like, these are the kinds of modifications you can make to not only get a 1% commission, but like most capitalize on that 1% commission, and maybe even be a profitable player within like the confines of doing this. Like, not like you won't be profitable, but even expand on not just capture the 1% commission, but push beyond that, because like you're entering a viable, it doesn't have to be good, but a viable 20 set into the arcade or whatever, is like, I think that also is not that hard. Like you said, you could have, in your all the tickets you got on FanDuel, it probably isn't that, like, I guess the uploading a CSV is a little bit more time, but I would say I would argue I would have at least built, if you had, I don't remember how many lineups you had, 20, let's just call it 20, whatever. I would have at least built 20 different lineups probably.
Right,
I think that's probably
like, just don't duplicate yourself, at least.
Don't duplicate yourself, exactly.
Right.
So yeah, and I mean, I definitely also just made some really dumb mistakes while I was doing this. Like, every once in a while, click enter for my 20 lineups. I did kind of have that, where I'd build like a full set of 20. If 20 max contest overlaid, I'd have a perfect set of 20 to throw in. I don't know if they're that good or not, but that's the point of chasing overlays. I don't care if they're that good.
They just have to be above average. Like, the key is they just have to be above the average of whoever's in the contest.
Yep. And so I'd enter it, and I was like, oh, it didn't load. I'd enter it again, and it turns out I entered it twice, immediately duping all of my lineups, stuff like that. Or for NBA, it's kind of hard with NBA Classic or NBA main slate, the full slate, because I'm not like confident in saying that if you just build a dummy lineup even a few minutes before, you're actually entering, like, you could enter a dead lineup, as it turns out. So I would try and, like, minute and 30, one final crunch of the optimizer, and enter those in. And every once in a while I got, luckily I was still doing the thing where I entered 10 cent and then within the DraftKings app on my phone, enter those lineups in. So a few bucks here and there where I reserve contest, went to import lineups into those reserves, and then within the app, enter those into the $10, the second $10 contest that doesn't fill. And every once in a while I got stung on those and lost $5 or $10 or whatever. So there are so many more edges you could have pushed, like you were saying, with just entering one, like have a cash lineup, have a 20 max, just so you can make some sort of differentiation. Don't dupe yourself. Like there are so many more edges in this meta that you can push to capture that 1%, and then probably even be a good player beyond that.
I think with MLB season coming up, I think it'll be a little easier for you.
I was thinking about,
because you don't have to worry about late swap. I mean, it's much more much more. The lineups are the lineups. You rarely get a scratch. Occasionally, you have who knows who's going to be pitching for this team. It's going to be a bullpen game type of thing. But for I think, and they have the turbo slate, late slate, showdown. I mean, the whole thing for MLB. But MLB is high variance as it is. That like, what is an average lineup? Like to me, I could if I wanted to spend the least amount of time, I go into my projections. And I say, build me 40 lineups and give me 2 of every stack. Just like literally, just like if there's 10 teams on the slate, if it's 20 teams on the slate, like just give me a 5-3 of 2 of just every team. And whatever fits in. And no more than 50% of one pitcher, right? So I have a nice at least a diversified 40 set or something. And then just say, okay, overlay time. Let's go hunting for a GPP overlay. And then you build a cash lineup, which is just like the best projected lineup. And it's like, it almost sounds too stupid. It almost sounds like how much DFS strategy are you're not even utilizing. You're just using like the bare basics of projection, correlation, and leverage. You're basically saying, I just want a diversified set of, a bunch of stacks. Some of them low owned, some of them not. A bunch of pitchers, some of them low owned, some of them not. Correlated, obviously, so I'm stacking. So there you go. And then the top projected lineup for my cash lineup. And it's like, wow, you spent like you could do that in an optimizer in probably less than 2 minutes, right?
Yeah, that was my NHL process. Was like 4 stacks, run the optimizer. There are some NHL slates where I was actually I consciously playing lineups. I wasn't caring about Rake, or at least I had a subset of contests I was entering that I was like, I'm entering the twine or whatever. But then beyond that, if I wanted to get more lineups in that were Rake free, I would just 4 stacks, hit crunch, whatever stacks came up is what I played. And I guess another even further maximizing volatility is I oftentimes, in almost across any contest, I wasn't doing forcing different stacks. Like you said, stacks, every combination of stacks. Instead I was like, give me 100%, Edmonton Oilers line 1 and everything beyond that. So if Edmonton didn't play well that night, I was just dead, completely dead. But it was worth my time to lock that and don't have to even think about how to force other stacks in the optimizer. So I even minimize my time by just lock one stack, play the rest. I'll enter.
Right, but you could do that by just saying you don't want more than 20% of one stack in all your lineup, and do that as the blunt tool, and just say no more than 20%, and just it'll give you 20% Edmonton, and then it'll give you 20% of the next best projected stack, and you could. I mean, that's another way of simplifying that. But do you find it weird that we're not talking about DFS strategy? I mean, like a lot of the show is the point that I'm making is very similar to the experiment that I'm doing in cash games. If I don't think at all, if I don't utilize, quote, the skill of my own choices, and I just go by just the projection set and diversification, what's my return? And then you have to figure what would have been my return if it's like the difference between passive investing and active management in the stock market. So like if you in an index fund, that's passive. It's just like whatever it is. But if you're in a mutual fund with an active manager, they're buying and selling and rebalancing and trying to get you the best return you can. But if they can't beat the S&P 500, then fuck you. Why did I have to pay for? Why did you have to do all of that? So in the cash games, I'm going, how much return can I get from doing the passive versus what I would have gotten Now, I don't know what I would have gotten, but I want to see what that benchmark is. I don't want to say, are you afraid? I've asked this because I asked this to Travis Mangone. But if you did this for a long enough period, I'm assuming that you're going to have to look at, because you said you're splitting your CSVs to see, because you play, like you said, you played NHL normally, right? You made your own decisions. You played the GPPs and you said, okay, I'm going to do this. That you really strategize it out. Like, what happens if you shouldn't the judge really be, I'm going to chase over, I'm going to do the average lineup, the bare minimum. Like the bare minimum, right? Like you did. I lock a thing in and just whatever it gives me, it gives me. But pay no rake doing so. Or get a commission, getting paid to do so. Let's say at the end of a 1 year period, you have your lineups that you play the NFL slates, right? You go, I'm going to stack the Chiefs. You're going to do all your strategizing. What happens at the end of the year if, like, your ROI of the set it and forget it and chasing overlay, maybe your ROI is 12%, and your ROI of, like, you actually playing, like, and paying full rake is 4%.
Like, I would love that. Are you kidding me? That'd be awesome. It's like, what? Are you afraid of finding a money printing machine in your apartment? No. Like, it feels heartless and soulless, but I think DFS is interesting, but I'm not doing it because I am madly in love with it. It's not my life's passion is to build lineups. So much what I like about it is that you can use strategy to make money, and whether my strategy is like building these stacks and leverage in my head, or like finding out how to optimize, the problem, optimize how do I get X amount of dollars into zero rate contests, like that is also it feels to me like a strategy. I'm sure people who the traditional person who loves DFS, that does not feel like a strategy. But to me, finding out how to put in the most minimal work, for me, it was kind of an interesting revelation. Just don't play the first NBA lineup, even if, in any contest, because it takes 2 seconds to move off of a 20 dupe train.
Right.
That strategy I find to be interesting. It's small and it's not it doesn't take a lot of time or anything, but that strategy I find to be interesting. And these different different ways to maximize my strategy, this overlay strategy, I find to be just as interesting as, how do I build a high leverage chief stack on the, showdown slate or whatever. I think any form of strategy to me is interesting. If you don't think it's that way, though, then you would never do this. But no, I am not afraid of finding a money printing machine.
Right. But also you have to think, let's say the reverse. Let's say doing this, if you isolated just this, you're getting an 8% ROI. And in your normal play, you're getting a 12% ROI. Now, obviously you're making more money, getting a higher return, doing active management versus passive management, if we want to use those terms. Wouldn't now the difference be the time element? Of would you absolutely right? To me that's the other variable. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing in cash games because I'm reducing the time variable to virtually nothing. So if you could get an 8, you would have to acknowledge, based on if we use that example of 12% active, 8% passive, that how much time are you putting into getting the extra 4%? If it turns out I could spend a half an hour a day and get an 8% return versus I could spend 5 hours a day to get a 12% return. It may turn out that you'd rather have those 4.5 hours to do whatever the fuck you want and get your 8% return.
That is the crux of what I wanted to know is not can you make money doing this, but can you put in so little effort and make any amount of money? Because if you told me I could make $1 a day logging on to DraftKings 30 seconds before CSGO locks at noon, yeah, I'd spend 30 seconds. I was probably just writing some fantasy football redraft article. Sure, I'll stop doing that for 30 seconds, pick up $1, and at the end of the day, I'll walk over to Starbucks and spend my $5. Now, I also want to know, how could you scale that? So yes, it is. That was kind of the crux of my question is, can you make any amount of money with a very small time investment? Can this just be this passive thing that I, sure, on weeknights, on a Wednesday night, I kind of have to be around to get showdown slate, turbo slate, tiers.
Right, it's not passive. It's not that passive. I say when I mean active, it's more like actively managed strategy.
Yeah.
Right, your strategy is just average lineup and just find overlay and I'm in, and I'm on. You're not even looking at that slate anymore. You're on to like the turbo show. You don't even know what's going on. You're just like, I'm on to the next overlay hunt.
Yeah, that was kind of the crux of my question. Is just can I as close automate it? Maybe not passive, but be there to push the button. Can I be around to push the button and just repeat this? And can I make money doing that? And it can also be mostly complementary to what you're doing. Like you can still be the lineup builder and then do this. Can I complement what I'm doing now by doing this? Like, we were saying it's lazy to not show up and take this free money, but also what I'm doing is arguably still lazy. Press the button, enter the lineups, move on. Can I do this lazy strategy and make any amount of money, a few bucks a day, given how low of a time investment is? I assume, obviously, if it's going well, it'll be more than a few dollars a day. That was my question. I still don't think I have an answer, although given how little Rake, which is literally negative 1% Rake I paid, and how many thoughts I have on how to optimize it, I think you probably can, in essence, push the button a bunch of times throughout the day and make a small amount of money, which is what I wanted to know. I didn't want to know, could I make $20,000 a year, $100,000? Can I make a little bit of extra money doing this? And
but I think you can. But I think you can make 20, 30. I think you can make
agree.
That.
I got way more action down than I thought I would. I thought it would be $50 a day.
Right, that's good. That was my initial impression. When you had that tweet, my thought was, yes, you could find it, and maybe it's valuable to a small stakes, micro stakes player in their ROI. But I'm not sure how much raw money it's going to be worth it. But you're telling me that the raw money. If you're telling me you could get 500 a day rake free, that's enough. That's enough raw money. You're talking about $75. $75. I mean, look, the minimum wage in this country currently is $7 an hour, right? So like $75 a day in expectation is, come on. Just do the math. $75. If you worked 5 days a week. Right, you take 2 days off, right? So you're making $375 a week, right? Before taxes, obviously. $375. You take 2 weeks off for vacation, right? So you're doing this 50 weeks a year. You're making $18,750 in expectation, right? Like dude, you might as well do that instead of working McDonald's.
Yeah, and you also don't have to. What I did was every showdown slate, every tiers, every turbo that I could manage doing at one time. If you are just you're a fan of NBA Showdown, you can just play that, and instead of setting it 10 minutes before and walking away, just be there and pick up. Maybe it's only an extra $5 because you're playing this sort of niche thing, but you also don't have to go, I'm going to chase overlay all day, or I'm not going to do it at all. Just take what you're doing, and then if you only want to play $50, enter $20 as dummy lineups or whatever, and the final $30 you enter it all in overlay free, because you can get $30 down in overlay free in essentially anything. I don't know, maybe not League MX or whatever, but if you're not going to do what I'm doing, which is just go full knit, see if you can automate this process, at least add it into your game, because it is if it's not free money, it's free rake you're not paying. You may not get 1% commission to play, but you will pay less rake. I guess the ultimate way to capsule is if you are playing any less than $100 in a given night, a given slate, you should not be paying full 15% rake if you're playing GPPs, or full 10% rake if you're playing in double ups. You should always be below a standard GPP rake, because it's so easy to get there.
So get laid, get paid. We turn it around. I think that's going to be the title of this episode. Get laid, get paid.
That's a good one.
Or do you want to call it the reverse man's? I think that's too inside.
Yeah, maybe. No, the get paid, get laid is
no, get laid, get paid. We can. I don't want to infringe on anyone's trademark. I don't want to.
You would also spell it. Would you spell it LAYED? Because isn't that overlay is
Well, so I have to spell it without the I. So it's get laid, LAYDED.
You don't have to if it's going to cost you in SEO. I wouldn't spell it that way.
I don't know. Are people going to turn this to you? I got to go to YouTube. Where can I find daily fantasy sports laid or whatever? I don't know. I don't know why anyone would be searching for that. But if it helped me, maybe I do that. But you have.
I think it is worth the content aspect to spell it LAYED.
No
one's how do I get laid playing DFS? Actually, no, that's some idiot.
In fact, it's the reverse. Typically, when you play DFS, you don't get laid. That usually you're not. You're usually actually in DFS, you're actually playing DFS instead of getting laid.
Oh yeah,
a lot of times.
I'm saying like, sorry, honey. Oh, honey. You don't understand. There are some kids in Korea and China playing League of Legends, and I'd like to gamble on them at a low cost.
Right. You're going. It's like I'm sorry. I cannot get a blowjob right now. I have late swap in the late games. Right.
We were like, my girlfriend and I were at the Mansfield prison where they shot Shawshank. They do tours there or whatever, or just walkthroughs. And I was there, and she's like, "Look at that!" And I'm like trying to enter a bunch of contests. She's like, "Oh, that's cool. Did you read that sign?" And I was like, yeah, all right, Yeah,
but you could take a day off then if you're going away or whatever like that.
But like,
you could take a day off.
Out there.
What's up with people not taking days off? Come on, you don't have to play every slate.
I did take some days off. That was just a time where I had the dummy lineups already entered. I was like, honey, I can find out about the ghosts in the attic in 30 seconds. But there's overlay right now. I did take one day off. There was one day, like the day I played EPL, I was just like, I don't really want to have $2,000 on this theory that I don't know a ton about because I didn't really look at my results till like that later that day. Didn't want to have $1,000 that day, so I mostly took the evening off. There was one other night where I had one set of NHL lineups, and I was like, I'm not playing any of the showdown or any of that shit. I'm just going to eat dinner and go to bed.
Well, hopefully you don't go broke.
I don't know. I might. It's super volatile, but
right, it's volatile. I mean, it's a risk, and like just like with any other investment, it's a risk. But if people want to follow up with you on your adventure, Kyle tweets here. Obviously, what did Kyle Dvorchak? Some other Kyle Dvorchak exists that stole your Twitter name?
I figured my name is not nearly easy enough to phonetically, like, it doesn't sound like it looks exactly. You're not gonna search my name correctly. If I tell you my name, you will not search it correctly.
But Kyle tweets here. That's SEO. We're talking about SEO. That's worth it because tweets here.
That was why. Yeah, it was worth it. It was worth it.
Okay. Kyle tweets here. And are you doing anything? Are you doing any content until football season comes back? Because, I mean, you do mostly football stuff. So is it just basically you're not going to see anything from? You're doing okay? You got to do fucking Dynasty and all the fucking
man,
like. You don't seem to realize when people ask me about football stuff. It's like, dude, I will not know who's on what team until about Tuesday before the first regular season DFS slate. I don't care. What does it matter? The football doesn't matter to me until then.
Yeah, I do all that. If you actually like your audience is probably not the best for that, although I'm sure there are some people. You can follow me on Twitter and I'll tweet out like articles and stuff I write. I will say though, like the more I've gone down this like this rabbit hole of like the entire rabbit hole of DFS. Like I was just a trash player like 3 years ago. Like the player picker, you know, everyone starts. I assume most people, maybe the people that come from poker are probably a little different, I guess. But I started out like pick the best players, man. You got to understand, Tyreek Hill's cornerback matchup makes him so good. I started out like that a few years ago.
Right, and then realized none of that shit matters.
Yeah. So the more I've gotten down that rabbit hole, it is a little less enticing to do like fantasy stuff. But there's also levels of strategy you can you can integrate into that. It's just I don't think it's as fun strategic as DFS. So I have like pulled a little bit back on that. But if you actually care about your dynasty stuff, I'm sure I'll write about that at some point in the offseason. I'll tweet it out. And that's
the best 100 wide receiver rankings. How about the combine and the draft and all that stuff just flies over. I just see it in my Twitter feed. I'm like, wake me up like 48 hours before week 1 of NFL. Like that's when I'll figure out who's on what team.
Oh, well, it's even better because I'm like, oh, well, no, I care about like wide receiver prospects. And like, did you see someone's combine? I'm like, okay, well, I don't care about that. That doesn't actually matter. So even within the confines of like liking the dynasty and the redraft and the best ball, there are also still many times where I'm like, well, no, that doesn't actually matter. Someone's like, oh man, do you see, like, it's the same thing as DFS. You're like, someone comes up to you and is like, are you playing DJ Moore today? He ran a 4.38. It doesn't matter if he ran a 4.38 in DFS, just as it doesn't matter that he ran a 4.38 in Dynasty. Or, oh man, Allen Robinson this year runs a gauntlet of cornerback matchups throughout the first 8 weeks. You can't draft him. To me, based on what we know, it doesn't matter in my context, just as it doesn't matter in DFS. So even within the confines of kind of more casual redraft dynasty season long stuff, there is still so much like nihilism baked into how I play.
But you're more likely now to figure out how Australian rules football works, because there are going to be some DFS contests. You have to figure out how that sport even plays.
Well, I already know, because I did play Aussie rules already once.
Okay, so finding the overlay could be in anything. At Kyle Tweets here on Twitter. Maybe you'll come back on a couple of months from now and either tell us how much money you've won or how much money you've lost doing this. But to me, it's interesting. I mean, to me, especially if you're utilizing this as a primary strategy, it's interesting for me. I mean, I utilize this as I'm going to find every slate that I play. I look to get the volume in towards the end of the slate, but I may not be playing the turbo slate. I may not be playing the showdown slate. Like I'm more focused on the main slates, but maybe it's something I do a little bit more. And if it's set it and forget it, if I could spend the least amount of time to make the most amount of money, like you said, I think you said it perfectly. It's like if you find out that you found a money printing machine, why would you be upset? It's like, okay, then that's just the way it is. So just hit the money printer, and hopefully not as many people find out about the money printer.
Yeah, the money printer breaks as soon as other people find out about it. And also they have to show up at 8:30, 9:30 to press the money printer. And hopefully I'm the only one doing that. And hopefully it works. Hopefully I'm not paying too much, not paying all the electric bills and the upfront cost of the money printer. Because there's like a very real chance that like average lineups just aren't good enough to cut it in GPPs. I don't think that's the case. And yeah, I totally love to come back on and we can discuss if that is the case. Because after a few months, I think that is like...
Yeah, we'll actually have a sample size. You could actually show some data on what you've been doing. No, I'd be definitely interested in that. So follow him. Kyle Tweets here. Kyle Dvorchak. I'm Jordan Cooper, the co-author of The Theory of Daily Fantasy Sports, 15-hour audio DFS masterclass. Pick it up at theoryofdfs.com.